Owen here from Irish Pensions and Finance, and I'm here with Kevin Gildee to announce the winners of our recent humorous short story competition. So, first prize was €500, second prize €750, and third prize was €1,000. And I'm here with Kevin, and Kevin, I believe you had difficulty trying to pick out the winners?
Yes, there was great quality, and even just 2 minutes ago I had 5 or 6. And I was going, what are the 3? And so what I did eventually, I whittled it down to 4. I made a compromise. So first, second, and joint third. 2 winners a third.
Okay.
There was a fantastic standard. What I loved about it was like, some of it was like anecdotes or stories that you would tell in a pub, but which were written down. So some of them worked and some of them didn't, because there wasn't like an arc. But some of them were great. Then there was more complicated stories that were really worked out. And then there was some stories, of course, that thought they were funny but weren't funny. They're always going to get that. Yeah. But I was surprised at the quantity of really funny stories. And there was also stories that weren't funny but were really moving. You know, there was 1 or 2 stories where I had a little tear in my eye, which is quite funny for a humorous short story competition.
So you get different perspectives on what different people think is funny.
Huge perspectives, and also like what they think is funny, but also it made me start, you know, like I write myself, so I have ideas about what a story is and an arc, and you know, it's interesting about a tone, and some stories had a tone, but then the tone would change. There's, in most of the stories, there were always brilliant bits, like whether it was one great line or a great piece, but then suddenly there'd be a strange jump, or you know, it'd be a bit lumpy.
Sure.
So it's quite interesting. I would say, like, I don't want to change the way anybody writes, but I think it'd be really interesting for anybody who's interested who entered this competition to like do a writing course with somebody, just to get ideas about structure and arcs and characters. But what I love about writing is that I don't want to change when anybody does. You gotta find out yourself. So it was great for me to sort of be challenged in what I thought was the story was. But I was, to be honest, I was surprised at the quality. It's really great, and the range and the subject matter.
Sure. Well, before you do name them, I just want to thank Kevin. We're here in his new bookshop in Dunleary, which is called Kevin Gildee's Brilliant Bookshop. He's a very humble man, Kevin. And Kevin has very kindly donated 6 vouchers for €50 each to the other 6 entries for the top 10. So thanks very much for that, Kevin.
You're welcome.
And we'll let you know, myself and Sarah will let you know by email who you are. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Kevin and let him read who the winners are. Thank you.
Hi, I better read these out quickly before I change my mind about the order. In joint third place is a story called Conference, which is about a man who's asked by the priest if he can jazz up their mass. And what I love this story. It's very subtle, and what I really love about it, comedy can often work when there's a brilliant interaction between characters, like more than 2, like 3 or 4. A brilliant example is the Tea Party in Alice in Wonderland, where they just build this momentum by the interactions. And in Conference, it's just, the interactions are absolutely brilliant. So congratulations on that one. In joint third is Whoa, Do You Know You're Dead, which is like almost a monologue, but I love this quirky humor, and there's obviously a dark hint at the sort of end of it, but this character is an old woman. I won't say much more, but she's such a brilliant character, and it's a very, the phraseology and her sort of catchphrases that illustrate her character are just fantastic. So Do You Know You're Dead and Conference are joint third. Now at number 2 is, I love this, and I don't have the name for this, so I do apologize, but I'm going to read the opening line. So if you recognize this opening line: in Flan's bar, Doherty pulled at his misshapen old raincoat before stopping and offering us one final parting tale. So what I love about this, in Flan's bar, I think is a reference to Flann O'Brien, because there's definitely more than a touch of Flann about this. And it goes into the most brilliant sort of pseudo history of magicians and a magician called Handy Hogan. And I just thought this was fantastic. Like, really enjoyed this. It's got such an imagination that Flan would be proud of. So that's number 2. It's about Handy Hogan, the magician, and it begins in Flan's bar. So that's second. Now, first is Barney Doolan's Fart and the End of the World. Now, for me personally, at the beginning, if I see the word fart, I go, But what this does is, this is a really brilliant. What it is sort of like, it's ultimately sort of about global warming and global warming deniers. But what it does is take a premise of sort of ordinary life and exaggerate it, like a lot of comedy does, exaggerate it into this, just by the end of it, the final image, is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And it's very light touch, but behind it, it's making an amazing point about climate change denial. It's absolutely wonderful. Like, it's very relevant to today's world, but while you're reading it, it's got that combination of making an amazing point in such a funny way, but also just being a really, really funny story. So that's first prize, Barney Doolan's Fart and the End of the World. And I was reading them, and it was like a privilege to read the majority of these stories, like really funny stuff. So well done, guys, and we'll get you the other 6 at some stage, okay? And come down to Kevin Gildee's Brilliant Book Shop and get some books.